Ah, I missed. Let's try again. Bingo. Hello, YouTube. My name is Sean. Welcome to my channel, It's All Good. Today I'm doing a follow-up on my video about the Great Minquas Path. It's gotten a lot of attention. I'm glad everyone's enjoying it. And I wanted to cover a few comments that people have left on that video and clarify a few things. Now, to tell you where I am more specifically, I'm actually on the Great Minquas Path right now, believe it or not. Many of the roads in Delaware County, or at least several major roads, trace old Indian paths. And the Great Minquas Path had many branches in this area, but the main route basically extends all the way from, it starts out in Conestoga, which is where the Susquehannock tribe had their village at Conestoga. And it travels all the way across Chester, Westchester, and then into Delaware County, and then all the way, Great Minquas Path goes all the way to the Delaware, and it cuts through many of the major towns in Delaware County. So I am right now walking down Yale Avenue in Swarthmore towards Morton, PA, and Yale Avenue crosses the Crum Creek at the basically just down from the Leaper House. And Yale Avenue crosses Crum Creek and then comes up the hill into Swarthmore, through Swarthmore all the way to Morton, and through Morton it continues. I think it actually changes into a different road at that point, but the path itself the Great Minquas Path would have continued all the way out to Darby, through Lima, continuing all the way to Darby, and then to Philadelphia. So I'm walking on an old section, and I wanted to talk about this because, sorry about that, camera cut out. But I wanted to talk about the Minquas Path a little bit because someone left a comment essentially questioning how old this path was, and I understand why they're skeptical that this is actually a 1,000-year-old pathway. When you read Wikipedia, for instance, or any of the major, the first 10 results on Google, when you Google the Great Minquas Path, those sources often make it sound like the pathway was created by the Swedes and the Dutch, who used it to trade with the Conestogans, aka the Susquehannock. But the reality is that the Swedish found it. The Swedish discovered the path, and then expanded the path into a major trading route. Now, I wanted to explain how this happens and I'm walking on the path because I wanted to demonstrate that the path has changed over time. It's evolved, right? And its current form is as a street called Yale Avenue through Swarthmore up through Morton. That's as far as I know. I know there are other sections of the path out in Westchester. The roads that cover the path all have different names now. And that's a demonstration of how this path has changed over history, starting, for thousands of years it was just a trail through the woods, and now it's major roads. So here's how this goes. Look, the thing is, to give you a larger, the sort of 10,000 foot view, or the bird's eye view of how the history of this road probably went. As far as I can tell, this is all just what I've been figuring out. Well, let me tell you where I get the information. I've definitely looked at Google results, but I also read literature, like books. I haven't read too many books, but I've looked into papers online. I can get access to like the Archaeological Society of Pennsylvania papers, and I actually want to read more books. So if anybody has suggestions, please let me know. But when you read these sources, you kind of get this. I've read a lot. I've just consumed a lot of information, and now I kind of understand how this may have worked. And you kind of get this overview from just covering all of this information, how these roads developed over time and the different infrastructure. So here's the story. Okay, basically, this was an old Indian path, and before colonization, the major towns were along the Susquehanna. This is as far as I can tell. The major Indian villages and towns were basically populated by the Susquehannock tribe along the Susquehanna River at a town called Conestoga, as I mentioned. And a different tribe, the Lenape, they lived in the Delaware County area and what is now Philly and up into Bucks County and a little bit in Montgomery County, just basically southeastern PA and maybe a little bit in New Jersey and northern Delaware, that kind of region. And the Lenape were basically just people living in little villages, and they were ethnically distinct from the Susquehanna tribe. The Susquehanna tribe, apparently they looked different. The Lenape were a little shorter, and apparently the Susquehanna were quite well built. They were tall people, and they just had like a different culture entirely. All right, I gotta cross the road real quick, 1 second. So, okay, I crossed Swarthmore. I crossed Swarthmore Avenue on Yale. And now I'm in Morton. And I'm walking towards the Morton Post Office along Yale. And this was a continuation of the Great Minquas Path for sure, as far as I know. And so, yeah, the Susquehanna tribe, they were very different from the Lenape. And as far as I can tell, the Lenape were kind of analogous to like they were more rural people. They lived out in the countryside, away from large towns. A lot of the times their villages, they were kind of migratory, so they didn't stick to one place. They kind of, there's a lot of evidence that in the summertime they would come down to the Delaware County area, and in the wintertime they would retreat to other locations, I guess. Maybe farther up in the mountains, I'm not sure, or I'm not exactly sure where they would go. But they were kind of migratory, they were rural, and just very, just traditional folk out in the countryside. As opposed to the Susquehanna. The Susquehannock tribe, they had an actual government, like they had their own basically power, centralized power. They had a town which was their sort of like their capital, and they were much more, like, I would say, organized society. And they treated the Lenape as if they were a little bit underdeveloped, or at least I get the sense, and I could be wrong, please, anyone knows better, correct me, but I get the sense that the Susquehanna looked at the Lenape as, well, they looked down on them, right? And they sort of saw the Lenape as just sort of not sophisticated, maybe. And this matters because when the Dutch showed up and began trading in New Jersey, and they came across the Delaware. This is before New Sweden was founded, and sort of during the early years of New Sweden too. But when the Dutch showed up, the Susquehanna were worried about the Iroquois Confederacy expanding southward. Now, the Iroquois occupied territory in northern PA and New York, that kind of area, and they were the Iroquois Confederacy, like any state, any government. They were expansionary. They were interested in conquering territory, and the Susquehanna were rivals and trying to prevent incursions by the Iroquois into their territory. And then the colonists showed up, the Europeans showed up. And the Susquehanna made a very shrewd calculation. They realized that the balance of power had now shifted, and now the only thing standing between the colonists and the Susquehanna tribe were the Lenape. And again, the Lenape were somewhat, I don't know how to say this, and I don't want to sound condescending, because it's not that they were unsophisticated. The Lenape were sophisticated in their own way. It's just they had a very different culture, and the level of organization in their culture, they're like in terms of social institutions and whatnot, it just wasn't, they didn't have that level the same way the Susquehanna did. I hope the wind isn't too bad. Sorry if it is. But essentially, when the colonies showed up, the Susquehanna realized that the Lenape were the only buffer between the colonists and the Susquehanna. And they realized the Iroquois were expansionary and would try to conquer, or were interested in conquering, the Lenape. So the Susquehanna realized they had to do it first. They had to conquer the Lenape first. And this is my understanding of why the Susquehanna started attacking the Lenape region, Lenape-held territories, when the colonists showed up. It was a power play. It's, Game of Thrones style dynamics where basically the Susquehanna wanted to subdue the Lenape and use them as a buffer area against the expansion of the colonies. Okay, so the thing is, knowing that history and knowing that the Lenape have traveled in and out of this area for thousands of years, up until the colonies, up until the colonial times, the Lenape were migratory before they were wiped out, right? So knowing that they traveled around the landscape, it stands to reason that the Great Minquas Path was one of those paths that's been here for thousands of years, that the Lenape used to move in and out of the region, and that the Susquehanna used to move out of the region as well, right? Move around. So these pathways have been here forever, and I just wanted to really drive that point home, because we have to remember that colonial history is not the first history of this area. It's how you doing? Thank you. Colonial history is the second history of this area. The first history of the area is the Indian history, and if we sort of engage in this, practice of collective amnesia and fail to remember that these roads have been here long before colonial times, we're doing a disservice to the Lenape and their memory. Like, these are their places. This road that I'm walking on, Yale Avenue, it's an old Indian road. There's nothing you can say that contradicts that, unless someone has a source and can show me evidence otherwise. I'm not convinced. I mean, I think this was an old Indian road. That's what I've learned, and I'm just a local, so I don't know any better than you. But I think it's important not to deny that these roads were Indian roads. Let's not give the colonies too much credit, right? Like, they did a lot, but they didn't. I don't know. I hope you understand what I'm saying. Like, we can't just say history started 300 years ago. That's insane. These roads have been here forever, and they've changed many times. Like, this road, here's an example. This road used to have a trolley on it, right? I think you've seen in previous videos how, especially like the Darby Creek video where I talked about the forgotten queen of Darby Creek, the burial of an ancient chiefess that no one talks about. I've never even heard of it before I was looking through Archaeological Society papers. But the Blue Route, the highway was built right through it because at some point all the car companies bought up all the railways in Pennsylvania and ended the rail system, including the trolleys. Like, the car companies, this is the story I know, that the car companies in the 20s and 30s, maybe 40s, I don't know the time period exactly, but the car companies bought up the railways and the trolleys in Delaware County and closed them all down so that we'd all be forced to drive, right? So this road right here would have had a trolley on it, so the Great Minquas Path has gone from a footpath to a carriageway for horse-drawn carriages to trolleys and cars. It's had many versions, many lifetimes and eras of this path. Okay, so you can probably find sections of the Great Minquas Path in your area if you live in the towns that it traveled through. You can just look at the map and you can sort of just follow where the different roads connect, and you can probably piece it together. I mean, that's mostly how I figured this out. It's just looking at the maps. I mean, I have also looked at old maps, like really old maps. So it's not entirely like Google Maps. It's also Colonial maps and other maps that I've found in libraries and whatnot over the years of just taking an interest in this subject. I've found a lot of interesting little nooks and crannies, little bits of information, right? And the paths are one of those bits of information that you can find. Now, I also know that I'm pretty sure that the Great Minquas Path was just one path in Delaware County. There were like 10 or 15 different paths. They all had different names. I think there was like one was like the Paxton Path, which I don't know if that's related to the Paxton boys. I don't know. There was another path like the Monocaso. I don't remember the names, but there are like 10 or 15 different pathways that the natives, the Lenape, used to move around Delaware County. And those are all ancient paths. I mean, they've been here for thousands of years. And maybe I'll do more videos just walking along the roads that used to be the old pathways, because the pathways are still there. They just have a different form now. They look like this, right? So, yeah, okay, let's see. What else can I say? I mean, I'm now coming up. I've walked down Yale. I'm walking through Morton. I'm coming up on. I passed the post office back there already, but I'll keep trugging along. And just want to say thank you to everyone who has taken an interest in the Minquas Path video. I'll definitely be doing more of these videos. And I'll cover more little tidbits about Delaware County history and other parts of Pennsylvania and New Jersey and Delaware that I know. I mean, the history here is really amazing. I just wanted to start with where I'm from because I don't think many people know about these things. Okay, I'm starting to ramble, so I'll probably leave it there. Let me just turn the camera around for you so you can get a sense of where I am. There we go. So that right there, that's the Morton train station. And the Morton train station is a very historic place too. It's a really interesting old train station. And maybe I'll do a video there at some point. Now, one thing to say about the trains here is that if you think about it, the SEPTA line from, well, I guess the end of the stop now is, the last stop is Wawa now. It used to be Media. But these train lines follow the Great Minquas Path. And so does Baltimore Pike. So if you think about it, Great Minquas Path, which is right there, goes right by. And behind me is a crossing. This crossing was where the Great Minquas Path would have passed through Morton and continued on to Darby. And this train line literally follows it directly. Like it runs parallel to the Great Minquas Path all the way back through Swarthmore, back through Wallingford, Rose Valley, out to Media, and then beyond. I mean, it deviates from the Great Minquas Path, in certain ways, and it's not exactly parallel like it is right here. Like there's definitely this part of the Great Minquas Path parallels the train line very nicely, so you can really see that the train line follows it. But about a mile that way, maybe even less, half a mile, is Baltimore Pike, Baltimore Avenue, which absolutely follows the general area where the Great Minquas Path would have been. Probably at some point the Great Minquas Path was turned into a road, and then in the 1800s, later, when SEPTA came in, they built this train line out through the farms, roughly next to the Great Minquas Path, which had become a major road, right? So then after that, they built Baltimore Ave, or Baltimore Pike probably was also a major road, just like a mile distant from Yale Avenue and the old path. All these roads and railways and pathways, they are geographically related to the Great Minquas Path. That's the point. Damn it, missed. All right, let's see if I can do better. Oh, I missed again. All right, last chance for this one. Blammo. Now, I feel like the Morton post office has some sort of history to it. Wish I remembered it. I feel like it was built in the 50s or 60s or something. But it was I think it was built on the site of one of the original post offices in America. Is that right? Maybe someone can correct me, but I feel like that post office has been there for hundreds of years potentially. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed. It's, this is the Minquas path. I'm telling you, we got a lot of ancient history in Delco. So, yeah, I hope you enjoyed this follow-up video to the other Minquas path video. If you haven't seen that video, go check it out. It's right now my most popular video on YouTube. And I'm gonna listen. Let's see, am I still recording? Yeah, all right. I'm gonna listen to you guys and I'll make more videos about that history. So thanks for tuning in. My name's Sean and this is my channel. It's all good. Until next time, bye. All right, we gotta hit one more stop sign real quick, just as, a redemption shot, right? Because the last two, that's a crappy snowball. The last two are terrible, or at least the last one I missed like twice. All right, so here's my redemption shot. Wish me luck. It's behind a pole. Pretty tricky shot, not gonna lie. And there's crosswind. I don't have good hope, but let's see. Oh, no way. The wind took it for sure. One more. We'll let this car go. And I'm pretty close. I mean, this is not a hard shot. Ah, I hit the pole. Good enough. All right, like and subscribe. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.